Thursday the 13th of October. I have apologies from Councillor Hawkins. Have we received any other apologies?
No further apologies, thank you, Leader.
Thank you. So, minutes of the last meeting. Members, are you happy that they are a true record of the last meeting? Yeah. We're all agreed on that then? Thank you. I understand there are no public questions. So we'll move on to the Executive Forward Plan, which is item 6 on the agenda. Members of the Executive, do you have any questions on this? No. Okay. The Councillor Access strategy has been pushed back to the next meeting, but I think we knew about that, even if it's only appearing on the list for the first time today. Other members, do you have any questions on this? If not, thank you. We'll move on to the cost of living response plan. Councillor Hopwood, this is your report. Would you like to introduce it, please?
Thank you, Chairman. It is of no doubt to anyone that the cost of living crisis is a serious issue. You can't turn on the television or speak to people without the subject coming up. We are in uncharted territory. How can we as a council help? We can make sure that those in need know where to get help and what is available. We can give direct support such as emergency grants and long-term energy efficient improvements to homes and make sure those in need of housing and benefit support are claiming all they are entitled to. As a council, we realise that the opportunities to support directly are limited, but we need to ensure that every penny we are given, we administer in the quickest way to those in need. We can support our partners to make sure residents can access the services that they need. If residents want signposting to an organisation, please go on the website and click on the cost of living tab. This will signpost you to the help available to all. It is really important that as a council, we also work with our towns and parishes so that no one is doubling up on the work being done. And I've asked Mrs. Blake to arrange an initial meeting so that we can share ideas and initiatives. There is a balance in the council tax rebate discretionary scheme of £162,555, and the final recommendation on the report is to support families in receipt of the council tax reduction scheme with one or more children. Subject to approval today, this means that families in families with one child, they will receive a one-off payment of £100, and for 2 or more children, £165. A letter will be sent to these families and they can take a voucher to the post office and claim the money. I hope that this will slightly ease the burden on these families, and this is a good way of directly helping those who have children and are in need. I think it is also crucial that residents know how to save money wherever possible with their gas and electric. For instance, did you know you can turn the hot water temperature down in your boiler so that the water isn't heated up to 60 degrees? What's the point of putting boiling water into a bowl straight from the tap and then adding cold water to cool it down? Turn down the temperature of the hot water in the beginning. Over the past week, I've tried various temperatures on my boiler and now have the hot water set at 48 degrees instead of the 60 it was. Turn thermostats down to the frost settings in rooms that you don't use. These 2 tips alone will stop unnecessary gas being used and help you save. These are only 2 tips I have, but there are so many more on the internet, and I'm sure the ones I've just said now will be found somewhere amongst those. We do not know how long this crisis will last, and as a council, we have to have a flexible response and be proactive in the challenges ahead. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. Members of the Executive, do you have any questions for Councillor Hopwood? If not, I'll open it to the floor. Any questions from the floor? Right. Councillor Hopwood, in that case, would you like to propose the recommendations, please?
I'll move the recommendations, Chairman.
Do we have a second? Okay. So, any comments from Councillor Baldry?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. First of all, there is a very helpful column by you in the print Southampton newspaper today, signposting people where they can go. Not many people read the print press, but I do. And that is a helpful piece. On the other hand, Leader, I'm surprised we have got this paper before us, because I thought it was the philosophy of the new Prime Minister not to offer helpful advice to people on where they can save on their fuel bills.
Councillor Baldry, what happens in Westminster and what we do here are two separate things. So we're happy to at least provide the information to our residents. We don't want to nanny state them, but we are making the information available to them.
Leader, I personally think, I don't like this phrase nanny state. I think nannies are quite nice people on the whole, nice and cuddly and helpful. Why we use nanny state as a term of abuse is beyond me.
Councillor Baldry, it's the first time I've had to put you in the same box as the Right Honourable Jacob Rees-Mogg. Any more questions? Right then, well, in that case, very good paper, let's pass to the vote. Members of the Executive, are you all in agreement with this paper?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is, I go straight from 7 to 9 here. Is there something I'm missing? It's the extra paper, sorry, yep, okay. So, key partnership. So, Councillor Hopwood, it's your morning this morning, because I think you're doing this one as well, aren't you? So.
Yes, it is me again, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This report is brought to you to recommend approval of grants to those organisations listed below. Firstly, the South Devon AONB. The recommendation is to increase the grant by £8,000 per annum, giving a total grant of £20,749. But this is on the strict understanding that a service level agreement is reached with the partnership to ensure that the demands of the Development Management Service are met where response is required when an application is in the AONB. It is important that we protect the beauty of all of the South Hams and of the South Devon AONB, and the South Devon AONB have a key role to play in this. To date, their responses to planning applications haven't always been forthcoming, so the service level agreement will help tighten this up. And I'd like to, just after I've finished doing this, propose an amendment to the agreement, the recommendation, please. Citizens Advice South Hams have played a key role in helping South Hams residents both during the pandemic and now the cost of living crisis, giving important advice and guidance to those in need. In recognition of this, I recommend that the grant is increased by £10,000 per annum to a total of £70,867,000. Health and wellbeing is a key strand of the Better Lives for All strategy, and Citizens Advice play a key role in delivering this. The CVS is another key partnership organisation who worked tirelessly through the pandemic to help coordinate volunteers. Further conversations are needed with the CAB to see how they can support us with our cost of living action plan, and we are keeping the contribution to them the same. Also, it's proposed that the contributions to Ivy Bridge, Ring and Ride and the Museums Development Trust remain as they are, whilst recognising that both our organisations are of value to residents of the South Hams. With regards to the Newton Abbot Ring and Ride, there is not one part of the recommendation that closes the door on this application, but the information required was not sufficient enough to recommend approval at this time. Officers will continue to work with this organisation to understand how they help residents in the South Hams, and any updates can still be considered before the 2023-24 budget is finalised. Indeed, it would be bad practice to give any money without the right level of information being provided, and it is up to each applicant to make sure that they provide what is needed by this council to enable us to make an informed decision. I very much look forward to our officers working closely with Newton Abbot Ring and Ride to reach a satisfactory conclusion for both sides, and I believe a meeting has been arranged between Mr Hawke and a representative in the next week. The Ring and Ride must hold the information requested, so it is only a question of filling the form in. Thank you, Chairman. Oh, and the recommendation I want to change is sorry, I haven't got the right one up now. Is that I'd like to add onto the recommendation for the AOMB that this is subject also to the executive agreeing the wording of the service level agreement with the AOMB. Just if we can add that into the recommendation, please.
Thank you. If you're proposing that, I'll second it.
Thank you.
But can we take the questions first before we actually move the recommendations? Right. Questions? Yeah, questions from the executive first. Any questions, members of the executive? If not, I can see there's one coming from the floor. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to see this list and interested that we can support a museum service in the southwest. Ivy Bridge doesn't have a museum. It's dependent upon builders completing a number of houses in the mill complex, and eventually we hope it will come online. However, we have 12 metres of files and very limited space in someone's own house. We've got 35,000 lines in the database, which includes photographs, burial records, census records, and so on. It's all very difficult to take this forward, and it would be nice if Ivy Bridge Museum could be included at some stage, perhaps. Thank you.
Do you want to reply to that?
Yeah, if I can, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Providing these records are, of course, going to be public records, then I've spoken to a few people, and we don't know. I haven't found anyone in the council that knows about this project. So unless we know about a project, we can't support it, obviously, because we don't know about it. And also, you need to sign up to the South West Museums Development Trust, and then you can access funding through there, because our £4,000 has enabled them to gain just over £90,000 in match funding over the last few years. So you need to, as an organisation, sign up to, and then you'll be part of that. We wouldn't want to leave you out, but we need to know about these organisations before we can give you advice as how to be included.
Thank you.
So now you know. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Hotwood, I'm assuming, did Newton Abbot Community Transport provide everything they needed to provide last time? Is that why they're on it for the last 4 years, but not the next 4?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Councillor.
Yes, thank you. A comment rather than a question, Nikki, about the AOMB, and at the moment they're trying to recruit somebody 1 day a week on purpose to look after the DMB questions, or DM questions, not DMB. Okay, thanks.
That's noted, Leader, and I think we welcome that, and there will, subject to the service level agreement being drawn up, then we will, obviously, that'll be great.
Well, if there are no more questions, Councillor Hotwood, would you like to propose the recommendations with the amendment, and we'll discuss the amendment first?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll just approve the recommendations with the amendment.
So, first of all, members of the executive, are you happy in principle to agree the amendment? Right. So we've got that into the wording now, and I will throw it open to the floor and to the executive for debate. If anybody wants to make any further comments, I think we've probably dealt with most of them by the questions. Sorry, Councillor Baldry. Yes, we're into this.
If we're into debate, just a word about Ivy Ridge Ring and Ride, if I may. I'm very pleased that we have given them the grant. I understand we have given them exactly what they asked for. I think it is a very good organisation. It works certainly well within my ward and across the Ivybridge district. I suspect, had they asked for more than what they had last year, I would have been proposing an increase, but they didn't. So more than happy to support.
Do we have any further comments from
Yeah.
anybody? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, you. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah,
Councillor Basto.
yeah. I'm really pleased that we're giving some support to the citizens' advice. I think they do a fantastic job, and they certainly contribute to what we do here at the council. They help with some of the issues that the public face. My main gripe is the South Devon AOMB partnership. And I think we're wasting our money at the moment. I welcome the amendment that we will have a look at this service level agreement before it's issued. I think we need to get a grip on the partnership, because I don't think, this is my personal opinion, I don't think they're doing the job that they should be doing. They're always late to provide reports to development management for planning applications. I was appointed by this council to stand on the Slapton Line partnership. And I have to say, I've not been impressed with the way they run that, and certainly not with the quangos that they invite, the unelected quangos they invite along. So I welcome the service level agreement and the fact we're going to have a look at that beforehand. As if it was down to me, I wouldn't even have the partnership. The AOMB would still be there. It would be any development will be controlled by the joint local partnership, and I think the joint local partnership do a brilliant job on. Sorry,
Joint local plan.
Well, joint local plan partnership do an excellent job on it, and have laid down some really strict policies which people, applicants, etc., have to follow. The AOMB, as I say, would still be there if there was no partnership. And what they contribute to the AOMB, I find that they are really struggling. Maybe they do need this finance, but we need to have a grip on any money we're giving out to them now, because I've been extremely disappointed.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. I must say that some of the delays are really unconscionable, and the problem is it's the planning officers who get it in the neck, not the AONB unit. And I really, it really isn't their fault. They're doing everything they can to get these reports in, and they're just not coming out of the AONB unit at all. But we'll leave that one there for now. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like I should, in some way, support the AOMB unit for the work that they do. I appreciate it's probably not, nothing ever is as efficient. I mean, it's interesting that Hillary talks about efficiency and whether you're getting value for money. Perhaps he might look at his portfolio sometimes, so you get value for money out of that. But anyway, I do think that they do an incredibly important service, keeping bringing the AOMB to people's attention and what it gives to us. It's incredibly valuable in respect of tourism and everything like that. I appreciate, and sitting on the planning committee, I know that they get very criticised for not doing reports, and I understand that this money is going to, in part way, fund someone to do that. I mean, if you look at it, we pay planning officers, probably about some of them, the lower graded planning officers, or the newer, less experienced planning officers, probably get paid about the amount that we're giving to the AOMB unit in a grant, and that's one officer. So the AOMB unit is doing everything else plus they're having to make these comments on planning meetings. So, whereas I understand that they, and I agree that I think a service levels agreement is good. I do think they do a valuable service, and I think it would be the wrong move and send out the wrong message from this council if we were to withdraw that funding. Thank you.
Councillor Hopwood.
Chairman, what I don't want to happen today is us to bash the AOMB, so I think we should just leave it there with the and I completely understand where Councillor Brazil's coming from. You know, they do a good job, and that's not unrecognised. This is just to tighten up what we require from them for planning. In what, you know, we live in an area of outstanding natural beauty, and it is crucial to the planning committee that they receive the reports from them. So I think we should leave it at that now.
Yep. And just to remind members, the AONB are only asked to comment on major applications in the AONB and selected other applications for particular reasons. So it's not as though everything in the AONB goes to them. Well, do we have any further comments? Because if not, we'll go to the vote. Councillor Foss, sorry, I hadn't seen you creeping in.
Sorry I'm late, Chairman.
Right, don't worry.
Just to say, I'm not saying any more, and I endorse everything that Councillor Brazil has said.
Thank you, Councillor Foss. Right. In that case, we'll go to the vote. So with the amendment that's up on the screen, Executive, are you happy with those recommendations?
That's unanimous, the updated recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
The next item on the agenda are the proposed changes to the council tax reduction scheme. Well, it's, hang on. It's your morning, Councillor Hopwood, isn't it?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to pass directly over to Mrs. Hodgkiss, who is our new resident. I don't know if you've been to a meeting yet. I can't remember. So this gives me an opportunity to introduce her. And it's pointless me asking. I would have asked her to write a spiel out for me on this, because I really don't understand it, or I can't. I do understand it, but she will explain it in far better terms than I could. So it's pointless her giving me something to read out when she can explain it in simple terms. But it is a good news story. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to kind of talk through the proposals for the scheme for 2023-24. Basically, we are seeking to provide the same level of support to residents in a cost neutral way, but to afford a little bit more flexibility in terms of responding to some of the cost of living issues that are happening at the present point in time. Basically, if we want to change our council tax reduction scheme, we have to go out to consultation. We have to consult with both the major precepting authorities who pick up part of the, or significant part of the council tax, but also the residents of the district, and also any other parties who are interested in the scheme. So in a nutshell, the scheme is looking to, or the proposed new scheme that we're seeking permission to consult on, is essentially, we're looking to increase the income bands more than the rate of inflation, to give a little bit more flexibility in continuing to support those residents who need that most that level of support the most. What we're also doing is at the moment we disregard income levels at different amounts for various classes of people. I think it's quite complicated, and the main driver for this is that we're proposing that we replace those disregards with a single £25 disregard. So this will obviously make it hopefully easier for residents to understand, because everybody just has £25 of income disregarded. And it also has the added advantages that it makes it less administratively complex for the team, which hopefully will bring forward efficiencies and free up some time to actually perhaps give some more bespoke support, because the team will have more time to do other things. The final thing that we are proposing is to make some changes to the what's known as the minimum income floor. Again, you know, really quite complicated principles terminology, but essentially it's to do with self-employed people, and the amount that we assume that they earn to draw them into the scheme or not. What we're looking to do is we're looking to offer a little bit more flexibility to those self-employed people who also have caring responsibilities, perhaps have some sort of physical disabilities, so are in receipt of things like disability living allowance and PIP, so they can still continue to be supported through the scheme. Obviously help in terms of the growth of the economy by still working, self-employed, but also enable them to have more time to actually discharge their care and responsibilities. So as Councillor Hopwood said at the outset, you know, I think it hopefully it is a good news story. We can continue to provide support to those residents who most need it, but basically making it still essentially cost neutral. Happy to take any questions if that's the protocol. Sorry if it's not.
Yes, that's fine. Members of the executive, have you got any questions you'd like to ask Mrs. Hodgkiss? No? I've got one. Presumably, while the consultation is on, there will be something on the website to explain how all this works. Because it might be a good idea if we looked at it as well to sort of get a bit more genned up on how it all sort of happens. But if only so we can explain it to residents. But if you've given us assurance.
Yes, we're working with the comms team at the moment to pull together the consultation questionnaire. What they've also suggested is that they'd like to do a very short video to explain it, because it's simple but it's difficult at the same time. So I think that's a really good suggestion, and we'll obviously make sure that website etc. is updated and put out a lot of pushes in social media as well.
Thank you. From what I've seen of it, if I understand it right, once you've understood the principles of how it works, then it is simple, but it's getting to those principles first, isn't it? So, yeah. All right. Thank you. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you very much, Judy. And yeah, I very much agree with what you just said. And I'd be interested actually in having an opportunity for members in a workshop or something, so that we totally get on top of this. I do think this is an area in council tax reduction that there are great opportunities for us to support the most vulnerable, and I'd love to understand better myself how it works. And I totally agree with Nikki. I mean, it looks good, but I'm a bit lost, if I'm honest. Just one of the other questions I wanted to ask, and that is that it says here in the financial implications that the total scheme is going to cost 52,000, but only our share of the cost is only 4,160. Are we expecting the other preceptors to take that hit as well? And I say that with, I suppose, with my sort of county council hat on, is that the county council is in a precarious financial position, and I wonder if that's going to be a bit of a showstopper. And that, have we checked with them? I know we've got to go out to consultation, but do we need to check with them first to see if they're prepared to give us this extra, or to provide this, not give us, but provide this extra funding for the council tax reduction scheme, before we waste our time going out, asking everyone what they think. They come back and they say it's a good idea, and then County go, well, we're not going to give you the money, so it's not going to happen anyway.
Councillor Brazil, I don't know whether Mrs. Buckle or Mrs. Hodgkiss wants to answer that, but I know one of them will.
I'm happy to take that one, and Lisa can jump in if needs be. Basically, we've already contacted the county council just as a courtesy to advise them that this is what we're proposing, and then we will formally consult with them as required to do so by the legislation.
And what did they say?
They are considering it, so they're aware of our proposals. But what I've also made the county aware of is the balance at the moment on the council's collection fund. So at the moment, the collection fund is in surplus by 2.74 million. And a large share of that will be due to the county. And the reason that the collection fund is in surplus is in the year of the pandemic, we didn't distribute a surplus to precepting authorities. We were very prudent and we distributed a small deficit. But actually, our council tax collection rates held up really well during the year of the pandemic. And we have to thank our residents for that. We were above the national average, and therefore that means that when we go to distribute a surplus for 23-24, we've almost got 2 years worth of surplus to distribute because we didn't distribute one in the year of the pandemic. So that will not only benefit us as a district council, it will also benefit the county, the fire and the police. So we've made them aware that they will get a higher distribution than normal, but there is a small additional cost of this scheme. It's 52,000, which would be shared between the precepting authorities. So that additional cost is very minimal in comparison to the share of the surplus, which is going to be distributed from the collection fund. Thank you.
You want to come back, Councillor?
If I may, yes. No, I'm interested to hear that the surplus funds, because it may be that when we get an explanation as to how this all works, that is tied in as well, because in some sort of way it may be that we could even be more generous to those who are more in need, rather than just, when I say just giving, I mean giving that money back to the people. I mean, if we can use it in that way, I don't know. Is the surplus collection fund, is that earmarked, or can we?
It is a statutory calculation, so the two aren't linked, but they can. But it is a way in which the county could finance their share of the 52,000. That's what we are explaining. So we're explaining to the county that they will have a larger surplus coming back to them from the collection fund. I mean, our collection fund is normally around about £1 million. As I say, when we shut down the 21-22 accounts, it's 2.7 million. So there's a very healthy surplus there for us to distribute. As I say, the two aren't linked, but it is a way that the county could finance their share of that 52,000, which they are aware of. Thank you.
Councillor Brazil, I think I'd point two things out to you. First of all, when we first introduced this scheme, the county council and the other councils in the district thought we were a bit strange doing it, but they've since come round to it and seen how much easier it is to administer than what they were doing sort of on an individual basis for everybody. So the other districts have joined in too. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, it must be better to give people a reduction that they think makes council tax affordable, rather than just saying, I can't pay my council tax, therefore I'm not going to. We're actually finding that we are managing to get in more than we're expecting on council tax. And I think it's because we are offering realistic discounts to people who really can't afford to pay 100% of the council tax. So both those things, I think, benefit all the preceptors equally, because the more council tax we get in, the more all the preceptors receive.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry if it came across as criticism. I fully support it, and I think it's an excellent way of giving those most in need money back. So, congratulations to all those involved. And the only thing I say, I only wish it could be more. But no.
Right. Okay. So if there aren't any more comments, I think we're ready to go to the vote. Executive, are you all happy with the recommendations? Please show.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
the next report, Councillor Bastone, is the COVID-19 Additional Relief Fund, known as the CARF Fund.
Thank you, Leader. At our council meeting in February this year, members approved to delegate the approval of a policy to administer the CARF scheme to the council's rate relief panel. The fund, totaling £1,684,710, was made available by government to support businesses that have been affected by COVID-19 but have been ineligible for other business rate support. Councils were responsible for developing and implementing a scheme based on local need. However, in accordance with government guidance, the council was unable to award rate relief to ratepayers who were entitled to extended retail discount, that is covering retail, hospitality and leisure, the nursery discount, or the airport and ground operations support scheme. Rate relief can also not be given to unoccupied properties. The council has awarded rate relief totaling 1.61 million to 509 business properties following a meeting of the council's rate relief panel on the 23rd of September. The amount of relief awarded is equivalent to 26% of the 2021-22 business rates liability based on rateable value. We have primarily been able to support businesses in the manufacturing, wholesale and supply chain sectors, as well as offices and public car parks. Billing authorities such as ourselves and precepting authorities, that is county and parish councils, are excluded by law from receiving discretionary rate relief. Business rate payers benefiting from this relief will receive a new business rates bill with a covering letter explaining the terms of the award of the rate relief. As the relief must be applied to the 21-22 business rates liability, most businesses will find that their account for the year will go into credit. This will be transferred to the next financial year, thus reducing the amount of business rates payable. Should a ratepayer request that any credit be refunded, a refund will be raised. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. Members of the Executive, do you have any questions for Councillor Bastone? If not, I'll throw it open to the floor. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, two questions. Could I know who is on the rate relief panel and who it's made up of? And also, would it be possible to have a list of the 509 businesses that have benefited from it, please?
I'm trying to remember. You and I are, for a start.
And Jonathan.
And Councillor Hawkins. And Jenny, would you be able to provide, or Lisa, would you be able to provide a list of those? I think we would, because we actually trolled through a list. So
yeah, we can provide a list of businesses, so business entities. We wouldn't be able to provide any details of sole traders, but we'll provide all the information and redacts as necessary.
Yeah, I'm always slightly uncomfortable when public money's handed out to businesses or whatever, and elected members aren't allowed to see that. I mean, I'm sure it's been absolutely done to the letter of the law as far as this council is concerned, but I think it's a dangerous principle that if you're handing out public money, that elected members can't see who that money's gone to. I just think it's a principle that there should be more transparency. I appreciate it is confidential, but we all see confidential information, and I don't see why we shouldn't be allowed to see this.
Well, Councillor Brazil, you've got the broad categories. So, I mean, really, it was businesses that had made evident losses during the COVID period, but hadn't been eligible for any of the other grants, is how I understood it. And I can see Mrs. Hodgkiss nodding there, so I think I probably got the right category of businesses, but maybe you could see her afterwards and agree some way of being able to look at the list, even if it's redacted in some way. Is that agreeable to you?
Yeah, all I always say was that we can provide the majority of the data, but we can't provide the sole trader data. So we can provide as much as possible, but I can have a chat afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. I mean, like I said, I think on principle, I don't care whether they're sole traders, partnerships, corporations, limited companies like that. I think elected members should be allowed to see who gets what when it's dishing out public money. Full stop.
Yeah, I think the one slight difference in this is that it wasn't our public money, so it's not money that we are directly responsible for. We're just the passporting organisation from the government. But having said that, we will provide you with whatever information we can that isn't subject to data protection, Councillor Brazil. So this report is just for noting, but I presume we're all happy with. Oh, come if you'd like to come back.
Yeah, it was just to say that it is actually a rate relief rather than money.
I'm sorry. Yes. Right. Yes, it is. You're quite right. Unlike all the other. But the amount of money was originally passported from the government, wasn't it? Yes. Thank you. Everybody happy to note that report? Yes.
That report's noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bastone, it's you again now for the month 5 revenue budget report.
Thank you, Leader. This is the first revenue monitoring report of the year and covers the first 5 months of the financial year to 31st of August. The report asks the Executive to note the forecast income and expenditure variations for 22-23 and the overall projected deficit of £54,000. This equates to 0.5% of the total budget of £10.464 million. An analysis of the projected variances against budget are shown in Table 1 on pages 52 and 53 of the agenda. Members will note that car parking income, Dartmouth lower ferry income and employment estates income is continuing to look healthy during 2022-23. In addition, due to the increase in interest rates, we are currently projecting additional Treasury management income of £377,000. This additional income is offset by a number of cost pressures, including the proposed pay award for 22-23 of £410,000, fuel and utility costs of £190,000, waste contract inflation of £180,000, and additional salary costs of £120,000 connected with the waste contract. There is also a shortfall on planning income to the 31st of August of £100,000. For the purposes of the 2022-23 projection, it has been assumed that income will be on budget for the remainder of the year. However, this is a volatile area which can be difficult to forecast given the impact of large applications. The position of the main income streams for the period 1st of April to 31st of August is summarised in the table on page 56 of the agenda. The budget monitoring position for waste and recycling service will be considered separately. This will be included in the waste service update report to be presented to the December executive meeting following the council taking back the service on the 3rd of October. At council on the 14th of July, members approved the use of £3 million from the business rates retention earmark reserve to fund the additional cost during the transitional phase of bringing the waste service back in-house. Budgets will continue to be closely monitored over the coming months and quarterly update reports will be brought to the Executive. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. Members of the Executive, have you got any questions for Councillor Bastone? No? Other members, any questions? Councillor Brazil?
Thank you. Yes, I see in the wage contract inflation there's a figure quoted there of 12.2%. I mean, the headline inflation figure that we get is nearer 10%. That's what we're given. You know, that seems to be what people are accepting is. So why is that higher?
Mrs. Buckle.
Yes, thank you. So the inflation indices which were set out in the contract were based on three factors. So it's partly wage inflation, it is partly linked to CPI, but it is also linked to fuel inflation. So it's a combination, an equation of those three factors. And when that's calculated for 21-22, that does come out at 12.2%. Thank you.
Councillor Brazil, do you want to come back?
So I'm assuming there that when we've got the fuel and utility costs, that the fuel it doesn't include our waste fleet at this stage in that 190,000.
Mrs. Buckle, could you answer that, please? Thank you.
Yes, so what we've done in this report is we wanted to make a clear delineation between the 6 months at which the council was in a contracted, had its waste service contracted out, which was for the first 6 months of the year, and then there's a separate 6 months, which is the latter period of the financial year, where the service is coming back in-house. What that figure of 180 is calculating is the extra waste contract inflation for that first 6 months. So that will include wages, CPI and fuel inflation. There will be a separate report looking at the latter 6 months, which will look at things like fleet. So the fuel impacts on the fleet, because the fuel indices are starting to come back down. That will be reflected in the period from October 22 onwards. So we have made a clear delineation between the first 6 months and the second 6 months of the financial year, where we've got two separate arrangements in place.
Are you happy with that, Councillor? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Voss.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at the car parking income. You do realise that could be better. The number of times I go to machines either in Totnes or in Slapton Line or even Modbury to find it isn't working or jammed up is more often than it should be. I know there is problems with the contractors in keeping them going, but I think we need to chase it up, because it's not just the odd occasion. I went to Totnes the other day and one of them down in the Victoria car park wasn't working. And I think it's something that we need to chase up.
Mrs. Buckle, do you want to make any comment on that? Because I understood that a high proportion of people were paying on Ringo now, but I don't know whether you know exactly what the proportion is.
I don't off the top of my head, Chairman, but we can certainly find that out for members. Yes, we do have a contract for repair of our pay and display machines, and as soon as we are notified that's noticed when our inspectors go out, then that, you know, we are straight on the phone to our contractors asking for that to be repaired. Similarly, if we suffer any vandalism of our pay and display machines as well. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Foss, we will keep an eye on that, and you're right to bring it to our attention. Thank you. Any more questions? No? So, this is another one for noting, but we will pass to the recommendation, which is on the screen. Members of the Executive, are you happy with that?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader. So,
the next report, Councillor Bastone, you again, is the capital programme monitoring for at the beginning of the year too.
Standard capital monitoring report, which is presented to Executive once a quarter. This report covers the period 1st of April to 30th September this year, and asks the Executive to note the content. The report advises members of the progress on individual schemes within the approved capital programme, including an assessment of their financial position. All of the capital projects are within their approved budget. A summary of the capital programme is shown in Exempt Appendix A. the award of contracts is subject to the council's procurement rules on competitive tendering, and therefore the allocated budget is commercially sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bustone. Members of the executive, you got any questions for Councillor Bustone? Any questions from the floor on this? I do think the addition of photographs in this report is really good. It's a shame some of them were taken a month or so, well, a few months ago, because I know that a lot of the projects have really come on since they were taken, but it's a really good addition and does bring to life what the council is up to. And I think by anybody's measure, we're actually doing quite a lot of capital projects for a reasonably small district council. So I would congratulate the officers on bringing these all forward. Right, Councillor Bustone, would you like then to move the? We've moved the recommendation. No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
If I could move the recommendation, the executive note the content of the capital programme monitoring report.
And I'll second it. Right, any comments from the floor? I think we've probably covered them in the questions. So are we all happy to note this report?
Carried. Thank you, Leader.
Right, so move on to the final report on this morning's agenda, which is the housing crisis update. So we've been through a number of reports on the housing crisis, and we've come back. Oh, here's Councillor O'Callaghan, just in time for the Kingsbridge report. You've timed that very well, Councillor O'Callaghan. Right. So this is about the two sites in Kingsbridge that members will be familiar with. Now, on the one site, we did have a project to build some modular houses, which didn't meet with total approval. And I'd like to take you to paragraph 2, is it 225 or 2.3.2? Thank you, Mrs. Blake, for pointing that out. That's right, yes. Where we say that following comments by Kingsbridge Town Council, the project was deferred. Well, that's slightly unfair on Kingsbridge Town Council because they weren't the only ones who didn't particularly like it. There were other bodies as well. I'd like to apologise to the Town Council if they thought they were being unfairly singled out there. But anyway, it did meet with their disapproval, as well as others. And the other project was on the old County Council building site up behind the leisure centre, where we were looking into doing another modular build. But unfortunately, we've heard from the company that does those homes, and it was going to work out being too expensive. But I think the important thing to note there is that was at absolutely no cost to the council at all. So although it's taken a bit of time to bottom out what we can't do there, it hasn't been at any cost to the council. Now, so the proposal is that we actually ask for expressions of interest on these two sites and see what we get back. Now, this is a tried and tested method that other councils have used. I believe that Plymouth do it to unlock some of their sites, and I think Cornwall have also used this approach. So we'll see what it produces. I think what we're hoping is that a housing association that specialises in this kind of build may come in and offer to either do it or to partnership with us. But I don't know whether Mrs. Blake wants to give any more information on that.
Thank you, Leader. As you said, it is a tried and tested method used by many local authorities to unlock potential development. What it will mean is we're really giving an opportunity to test the market. Because although we've spoken to one provider of modular housing and one provider of traditional build, we haven't spoken to them all, and it's really important that we look at what might be available, who might want to take on those sites, and bring us forward something that meets our needs, and that it's affordable led housing, and that's the priority here.
Well, thank you very much for that. So that's what we're proposing in this paper. At the same time, I'd like to that there is a section on the task and finish group that was set up by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I'd like to thank them for their efforts at what they looked at and the examples they brought to our attention. But I think it made it clear to them, as it has been to us for some time, that there is no silver bullet on this one, and that there are no kind of brilliant answers or shortcuts to delivering affordable housing. Whatever you do is quite hard, and some people have been reasonably successful, but I think to be successful on a grand scale, there are very few that have managed to do that. The small sites that have popped up and been done well. I think Cornwall's got quite a good handle on it now, but then they're doing it all over the county and not just in one district. So when you add it up, it probably isn't more than 1 or 2 schemes per old district in the county. So from that point of view, it's not hugely more than what we've been doing. So, but I am grateful for the work you did. And I'm also quite grateful that you found out that there isn't a silver bullet, because if there is one, I think we'd have discovered it by now. But anyway, this I think will be a really good approach, and we'll see what it brings in and see if it brings us any more joy than what we've tried already. So, so that's that. Any questions from the executive on this? No? Any questions from the floor? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you. Have we still got funds in the community housing scheme? I mean, because that would be applicable, I would have thought, to land that we actually own.
If you look back to the capital report, you'll find it in the appendices. You'll find the amounts that are available for housing there. But we're actually hoping that these people might be able to come in and do it without us having to contribute too much. But we'll wait and see what the suggestions are. But certainly that money's there if it's required for a scheme.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I welcome this attempt to try and get some more affordable housing, but we really are between a rock and a hard place, because I'm on a private housing association. We had one house come up the other day, and the number of applications was astonishing, and that was all local youngsters, young families. And as I see it, as much as I welcome this initiative, we all know that interest rates are going up, build costs are going up. It's not going to get any easier.
Councillor Foss, I 100% agree with you, but I think that's all the more reason why we've got to try everything to see what we can unlock. Yep. And I'm afraid the noises coming out of government at the moment are not terribly encouraging for us. So, but I think they'll run into trouble in the south of England before they run into trouble from us. So we'll see about that. Right. If that's the end of the questions, I will propose the recommendations that are on the screen in front of you at the moment. Oh, Councillor Callaghan, sorry, I didn't see you there.
Oh, thank you. I've only just put it up. I was waiting for my turn. Thanks very much. And as one of the Kingsbridge ward members, I'd just like to welcome this being on the agenda. I think the background is that the Town Council at Kingsbridge has been working in partnership with South Hams on this, and I just think they felt that it wasn't really going anywhere for a long time, and they felt a bit in the dark. So I think they're pleased. Izzy came to the Town Council meeting on Tuesday, and I think town councillors and residents who came along were very pleased to see officers coming along and explaining it to them, explaining you know, the expressions of interest that's happening. So let's see what actually does happen and who does express an interest, and hope we end up with the housing that people actually want in the town, which is obviously affordable, social housing. People can't find anywhere to rent. Terrible, you know, what is being built is often not affordable for them. So, you know, it's a good start, and let's hope what emerges is what people want.
Yeah. Councillor Callaghan, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a group to consider any proposals that come in has been agreed, and the Town Council will be represented on that. So that, yes, that'll be a good step forward. Right, so I'm going to propose the recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Yes. Councillor Baldry, did you want to ask a question?
No, I was going to speak.
You want to comment? Yeah. No, right, well, you can get ahead of me. I'm there now, so.
Just a brief comment, if I may, on recommendation 2. We're asked to note the work of overview and scrutiny as set out in the papers. I just think this was task and finish at its best, being of assistance to the research needed for an item on the agenda. So I think, yes, I note it, but I also commend them.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Do we have any further comments? Right. Members of the executive, are you happy with the recommendations?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. That brings us to the end of the agenda. So the council meeting will start at 11:30.